We were discussing the role and the risk of transvaginal sonography, and it was said that TVS is superior to transabdominal and transperineal approaches and is safe. And woman who has persistent low-lying placenta or placenta previa at 32 weeks of gestation who remain asymptomatic, and additional transvaginal sonography is recommended at 36 weeks of gestation to inform and decide about the mode of delivery. Then comes up the cervical length measurement that may help facilitate management decisions in asymptomatic women with placenta previa. If the woman has a short cervical length on transvaginal sonography before 34 weeks of gestation, that increases the risk of preterm emergency delivery and massive hemorrhage at cesarean section. So, serial scan from 26 weeks or for cervical length should be done in such cases in those who have shorter cervical length. If the cervical length at 26 weeks of gestation is less than 35 mm, that increases the risk of preterm cesarean section and massive hemorrhage. So, serial TVS is done in such cases from 26 weeks of gestation. Now coming to the question, where should women with a low-lying placenta or placenta previa be cared for in the third trimester? Um, there comes up two tiers of women in which there is recurrent vaginal bleeding and those who remain asymptomatic. We will firstly discuss the woman with recurrent vaginal bleeding in low-lying or the placenta previa. Tailor the antenatal care, including hospitalization to individual women's needs and social circumstances, which decide the admission to the hospital. For example, distance from home and hospital and availability of transportation, previous vaginal bleeding episodes, hematology, laboratory results, and acceptance of receiving donor blood or blood products. Where the hospital admission has been decided, an assessment of risk factors for venous thromboembolism in pregnancy should be performed as outlined by the Green Top Guideline number 37A. This will This will need to balance the risk of developing a venous thromboembolism against the risk of bleeding from a placenta previa or low-lying placenta. It should be made clear to any woman being treated at home in the third trimester that she should attend the hospital immediately if she experiences any sort of bleeding, including spotting, contractions, or pain, like the vague suprapubic period-like aches, and in such cases, if she experiences any bleeding, she should miss her anticoagulant dose. And in now coming to the women who are asymptomatic, those women who remain asymptomatic in the third trimester should be counseled about the risk of preterm delivery and obstetric hemorrhage, and their food care should be tailored according to their individual needs. Women with asymptomatic placenta previa confirmed at 32 weeks of gestation and managed at home should be encouraged to ensure that they have safety precautions in place, including someone is available to help as necessary and ready access to the hospital. Now coming to the question that is there a place for cervical cerclage in women with placenta previa or low-lying placenta? This is not supported by the sufficient evidence to recommend its use outside of a clinical trial. So, the use of cervical cerclage to reduce bleeding and to prolong pregnancy is not supported by the available evidence to recommend its use outside of a clinical trial. Then comes up the question, in what circumstances and at what gestation should women be offered antenatal corticosteroids? So the answer is a single course of antenatal corticosteroid therapy is recommended between 34 and 35 plus 6 weeks of gestation for women with low-lying placentas or the placenta previas and is appropriate prior to 34 weeks in women which are at higher risk of preterm birth. So the answer is the woman should receive a single course of antenatal corticosteroids between 34 and 35 plus 6. That means 36 weeks. 34 to 36 weeks of gestation provided they remain asymptomatic. And in those women who have a high tendency towards a preterm birth, they should receive before the 34 completed weeks of gestation. Now coming to the question, is there a place for a use of tocolysis in women presenting with symptomatic low-lying placentas or placenta previas who are in suspected preterm labor? The answer is very simple. Those women who are symptomatic having placenta previa or low-lying placentas may be considered for tocolysis for 48 hours to facilitate administration of antenatal corticosteroids. If delivery is indicated based on maternal or fetal concerns, tocolysis should not be used in an attempt to prolong the gestation. Now coming to the question, at what gestation should planned delivery occur? The answer is late preterm, like 34 to 36 plus 6 weeks of gestation, that is 34 to 37 weeks. Delivery should be considered for women presenting with placenta previa or low-lying placenta and a history of vaginal bleeding or other associated risk factors for preterm delivery after receiving the single course of antenatal corticosteroids. And delivery timing should be tailored according to the antenatal symptoms. And for the woman presenting with uncomplicated placenta previa, delivery should be considered between 36 and 37 weeks of gestation. I repeat, in those women who are symptomatic, having episodes of vaginal bleeding and other risk factors for the preterm delivery, should be delivered between 34 to 36 plus 6 weeks of gestation. And in those women who remain asymptomatic or uncomplicated placenta previa should be delivered between 36 and 37 weeks of gestation. Now coming to the question, in what circumstances is vaginal delivery appropriate for women with a low-lying placenta? In women with a third trimester asymptomatic low-lying placenta, the mode of delivery should be based on the clinical background, the woman's preferences, and supplemented by ultrasound findings, including the distance between the placental edge and the fetal head position relative to the leading edge of the placenta on TVS. That is, in third trimester asymptomatic low-lying placenta, the mode of delivery should be based on the clinical background, the woman's preferences, and the ultrasound findings. That is the distance between the placental edge and the fetal head position relative to the leading edge of the placenta on transvaginal sonography. So those women can be given a trial of low-lying placentas in the third trimester. Optimizing the delivery of women with placenta previa. Prior to delivery, all women with the previas and their partners should have a discussion regarding the delivery. The indications for the blood transfusion and need of hysterectomy should be reviewed, and any plans to decline blood or blood products should be discussed openly and documented. Placentas previas and the anterior low-lying placenta carry a higher risk of massive obstetric hemorrhage and hysterectomy. Delivery should be arranged in a maternity unit with on-site blood transfusion services and access to critical care. Level 2 critical care should be available for such cases. And women with atypical antibodies from a particularly high risk group, and the care of these women should involve discussions with the local hematologist and blood bank. Prevention and treatment of anemia during the antenatal period is recommended for women with placenta previa or low-lying placentas, as for any pregnant women. Delivery for women with placenta previa or low-lying placentas. What grade of obstetricians and anesthetists should attend the cesarean delivery of a woman with placenta previa? As a minimum requirement for a planned cesarean section for a woman with placenta previa, the surgical procedure should be carried out by an appropriately experienced operator. In cases of planned caesarean section for previa or low-lying placenta, a senior obstetrician, usually a middle grade, usually a consultant, and senior anesthetist, usually a consultant, should be present within the delivery or theatre suite where the surgery is occurring. When an emergency arises, the senior obstetrician and senior anesthetist should be alerted immediately and attend urgently. What anesthetic procedure is appropriate for women having a cesarean section for placenta previa? Regional anesthesia is considered safe and is associated with the lower risk of hemorrhage than general anesthesia for cesarean delivery in women with placenta previa or low-lying placenta. Women with anterior placenta previa or a low-lying placenta should be advised that it may be necessary to convert to general anesthesia if required and asked to consent. What blood products should be available? Close liaison with the hospital transfusion laboratory is essential for women presenting with placenta previa or a low-lying placenta. Rapid infusion and fluid warming devices should be immediately available. Cell salvage is recommended for women where the anticipated blood loss is great enough to induce anemia, and in particular in women who would decline blood products. So the hospital transfusion laboratory close liaison is essential, and rapid infusion and fluid warming devices should be immediately available. Cell salvage is recommended where the blood products are declined for transfusions, and anemia should be corrected. What surgical approach should be used for women with placenta previa or low-lying placentas? Consider vertical skin and or vertical uterine incisions when the fetus is in a transverse lie to avoid the placenta. Particularly below 28 weeks of gestation. This is to be given. Consider using preoperative and intraoperative ultrasonography to precisely determine placental location and the optimal place for uterine incision. That is placental location and optimal place for uterine incision. Placental location and optimal place for uterine incision. If the placenta is transected during the uterine incision, immediately clamp the umbilical cord after fetal delivery to avoid excessive fetal loss. If pharmacological measures fail to control hemorrhage, then initiate intrauterine tamponade, and surgical hemostatic techniques sooner rather than later should be executed. Interventional radiological techniques should be urgently employed where possible. Early recourse to hysterectomy is recommended if conservative medical and surgical interventions prove ineffective. Antenatal diagnosis and outcomes of women with placenta equina spectrum. What are the risk factors for women with placenta equina spectrum? The major risk factors for placenta equina spectrum are history of equina in a previous pregnancy, previous cesarean delivery, and other uterine surgery, including repeated endometrial curettage. This risk rises as the number of prior cesarean sections increases. The major risk factors for placenta accreta spectrum are the history of accreta in a previous pregnancy, previous cesarean sections, and other uterine surgeries, including repeated endometrial curettage. Number of prior cesarean sections increases, then the risk of accreta also increases. Women requesting elective cesarean delivery for non-medical indications should be informed of the risks associated with placenta accreta spectrum and its consequences for subsequent pregnancies. How can placenta accreta spectrum be suspected and diagnosed antenatally? Antenatal diagnosis of placenta accreta spectrum is crucial in planning its management and has been shown to reduce maternal morbidity and mortality if we plan its management ahead of it. Previous cesarean delivery and the presence of anterior low-lying placenta or placenta previa should alert the antenatal care team of the high risk of placenta accreta spectrum. Ultrasound screening and diagnosis of placenta accreta spectrum, how it is done. Ultrasound imaging is highly accurate when performed by a skilled operator with experience in diagnosing placenta accreta spectrum. Refer women with any ultrasound feature suggestive of placenta accreta spectrum to a specialist unit with imaging expertise.